The moving truck hadn't even cleared the street when it began, her voice cutting through the crisp autumn air like a knife. "You can't live here!" she screamed, jabbing her finger at me as if I'd trespassed into her private kingdom. I stood there on my own porch, house keys still warm in my hand, and realized in that moment that my new beginning was about to spiral into a nightmare I hadn't signed up for. My name's Michael Carter, 35 years old. Husband, father, and now apparently the newest enemy of a woman named Linda Walker, the self-proclaimed queen of this neighborhood's HOA. I'd served years in uniform thinking I'd left the battles behind me, and I bought this place in Virginia for peace space and a safe yard for my little girl to grow up in. I thought I'd found it. Instead, I got Linda. She stormed up with a piece of paper already in her hand, something that looked suspiciously like an official violation notice, except my name was scrawled on it and I had literally moved in that morning. "This property is HOA controlled. You're already breaking rules," she barked, shoving it at me like a warrant. I read it, smirked, and said quietly, "Ma'am, this house isn't in your HOA." Her face turned crimson like I'd slapped her with the truth. "Don't play smart with me," she hissed. "I'm the president here. I'll call the cops right now." She pulled out her phone with shaking fingers, dialing as if she was summoning an army. Emily, my wife, stepped out onto the porch, balancing our daughter Sophie on her hip. Calm as ever, she said, "Ma'am, this property is not under your HOA." But Linda wasn't listening. She was already yelling into her phone, waving her free hand like she was orchestrating a takedown. I leaned against the railing, forcing myself to look relaxed, even though I knew better. This wasn't just neighborly drama. Linda wasn't the type to bark without bite. And sure enough, not 10 minutes later, I heard the distant wail of sirens. "Good," she grinned, eyes sparkling with triumph. "Now you'll see who really runs this neighborhood." But when the vehicles pulled up, my gut twisted. 2 black SUVs, no markings, tinted windows. They weren't local cruisers. The way they parked, blocking my driveway like they owned it, was all wrong. 3 men climbed out wearing cheap black uniforms with shiny belts and knockoff radios. No badges, no names, just attitude. Linda ran to them, arms flailing. "Over here! Arrest him, he's trespassing!" she shouted. One of the men puffed up his chest, strutted toward me, and in the flattest tone said, "Sir, you're in violation of HOA code. You need to leave this property immediately." Emily leaned close and whispered, "They're not real cops." She was right. I'd seen that game before. Badly staged authority meant to scare to control. But this wasn't a movie. This was my family's front yard. And my little girl's tiny fingers tightened around her mother's shirt, sensing the tension in the air. Inside, I cracked for a second. I thought, maybe we made a mistake. Maybe this house isn't worth it. What if they drag me out in front of my wife and daughter? What if everyone sides with her because she's been here longer? For the first time in years, I felt powerless in my own home. A man who'd survived deployments was standing on his porch wondering if he should just give up. But then I looked at Emily, steady, calm, strong. She wasn't afraid, and that shook me out of it. I realized if I crumbled now, Linda would own us forever. And that wasn't going to happen. Not here, not today. So I pulled out my phone, raised it high, and hit record. My voice carried steady but sharp. "This is my land. I own this deed. And you," I pointed straight at the fake officer, "you better start explaining who you work for before you end up in a real jail." For the first time, Linda's smirk wavered. She barked louder, "He's lying! Take him away!" The man stepped closer, his hand twitching at his belt like he thought about pulling something. My daughter whimpered, burying her face. That was it for me. I wasn't backing down another inch. I reached into my back pocket, pulled out my wallet, and flipped it open. Sunlight glinted off the silver badge inside. Deputy Sheriff. The 3 men froze. Linda's jaw went slack. "I'm not just a homeowner," I said, voice low and cutting. "I'm a deputy, and you just committed a felony the second you set foot on my property." One of the men glanced nervously at the SUV. Another shifted his weight like he was about to bolt. The leader stammered, This is a misunderstanding." But I took one step forward, letting the weight of authority hang in the air. Stay where you are." Even the neighbors who'd started peeking out from porches fell silent. Linda, desperate, doubled down. "Don't listen to him. That badge is fake. Anyone can buy one online." Her voice cracked, but she tried to cover it with shrieks. She didn't notice the cell phones raised all around us neighbors recording every second. Emily stepped forward calm as Ice pulling out a folder we'd prepared long before the move. Inside were copies of the deed, county records, even a letter from the sheriff's office confirming this property was not HOA controlled. She handed it to a neighbor filming. Now, the truth wasn't just in my hands, it was in the crowd's. The tide shifted. Murmurs spread. Phones zoomed in on the fake cops' blank uniforms. The men swallowed hard, realizing this easy job had turned into a public crime scene. But Linda, red-faced and trembling, screamed at them again. "Don't just stand there. Arrest him. Go, go." The men hesitated, caught between a furious woman and a very real badge pointed at them. And then the sound cut through everything, sirens again this time, from the opposite end of the street. But these weren't SUVs. They were county sheriff cruisers' lights flashing, decals gleaming. Real authority. The moment those cruisers rolled up, the color drained from Linda's face. Her kingdom crumbled in an instant. The fake cops stiffened, then tried to edge toward their SUV, but I barked, "Don't move." My voice left no room for doubt. They froze. The deputies stepped out, took one look, and knew. Radios crackled, cuffs came out, questions fired. The imposters didn't argue, they wilted under the weight of real law. Linda, though, tried one last time. Her words stumbled out. I was just trying to keep order. This neighborhood needs rules." The deputy cut her off. "Ma'am, you just orchestrated felony impersonation of law enforcement. That's prison time." The cuffs snapped shut around her wrists. Neighbors gasped, whispered, filmed. The so-called queen of the HOA was being led away in handcuffs, her empire shattered under the weight of her own arrogance. I stood silent, heart pounding, staring at the scene. I didn't cheer. I didn't smile. I just reached for Emily's hand and she squeezed back Sophie, clinging to her shoulder. In that silence, I knew something simple and undeniable. People like Linda only rule when others let them. The second you stand tall, the second you refuse to be bullied, their power is gone. And that's the lesson I walked away with. Bullies only win if you stay quiet.